Good evening, and I'm so happy you're watching us here on PBS Fort Wayne tonight. We've got a very good show for you. We've got some legal advice. Who doesn't want or need some legal advice? So here's your opportunity to call in if you have some questions. 969-2720 is our number. And if you're out of the immediate calling area, out of 260, just put a 1-888 in front of that number that you see at the bottom of the screen, and it'll be toll free for you. In addition to an attorney tonight, we have a wealth advisor. So if you have financial questions, this is your night to call as well. Overall, we're kind of going to sort of be talking about financial planning for long-term care. And if you have something in that area that you want to know about, again, just call us right here. Meanwhile, let's meet our guests this evening, the stars of the show. Did you know you were a star of the show tonight?
Oh, absolutely, Sandy. My name is William Stockdale. I'm an elder law attorney. Been in practice about 3 years, and I'm looking forward to a very educational and informative discussion on long-term care and financial planning.
Good, and you know that's our mission. One of our mission statements here at PBS is to provide education and information, so you're right on. Okay, and we have a new guest this evening. Will's been on before, but Jason Gergely, you have not been on before.
Correct.
Could you give some identification for our viewers?
Absolutely. My name is Jason Gergely. I'm a wealth advisor in Warsaw, Indiana. I've been there for 9 years, and I'm also very, very excited about being here tonight, so thanks for having me.
Good. All right. And the rest of you, again, just sit back and relax for the next half hour. We don't have any commercials during this show, so we'll just be going straight through. And I'm going to ask questions while I wait for you to give us a call with your questions. All right. Long-term care and financial planning. Obviously, the two go hand in hand if you choose to do something about it. I want to start with you, Will. If you could discuss the different types of financial accounts that we might be looking at to invest in.
Yeah, so in my practice, I do a lot of elder law, estate planning, financial planning, not necessarily giving specific financial advice, but certainly talking about from a legal perspective, from a, transferring from generation to generation, how certain accounts are handled. I am very familiar with, and I think many of our viewers are very familiar with things like checking accounts, savings accounts, certificates of deposit. But I wanted to bring on with me a financial planner and a wealth advisor here today so he could share some information about some of the other accounts that are less well known, not that they're less frequently used.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about that, Jason. Will's mentioned the ones most people know about, but obviously there are some others that you might look at as options.
Absolutely. I mean, there's Roth IRAs or 401ks and 403bs if you're saving for retirement. There's investment accounts as if you wanted to have certain kinds of investments. And then within each of these accounts, you have underlying investments such as annuities or stocks or bonds, and you can also have some CDs and money markets within those types of vehicles too. It just depends on what kind of tax efficiencies you want to take advantage of. And they each have their own little nuances that come along with it. Absolutely.
And they change sometimes, yes?
Occasionally, yeah. When the IRS or legislators might want to change those rules, absolutely.
Does it matter that you know that?
Does it matter that you know the changes?
If there are changes, would you be notified, or are you just expected to know?
I think a lot of times you are expected to know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's really important for a lot of people at any given day. But if you have a good financial advisor or financial planner, they should be up to speed on any changes from one year to the next, and should be able to inform you and your family of those changes. Absolutely.
Okay. See, there's so many options. Would you say, and Jason, back to you on this, that most people do their investing through work, or do they do it personally?
I would say most people that I've seen, they invest directly through their employer-sponsored retirement plan, the 401k or the 403b. Some people have a 457 if you're a government plan, or what's called a simple IRA. There's a lot of different vehicles that help you save for the future through payroll without you actually seeing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Will, all right, then you can tell us this. If I am looking at options at work to invest in, what questions should I ask? What do I need to know?
So in most of your employer-sponsored plans, you're not going to have a lot of day-to-day control over what the underlying investments are, what stocks you're invested in, what kind of actual investments you have. But what you will be able to decide is, what is your level of risk tolerance? Do you want to be very conservatively invested? Do you want to be invested aggressively? And it just depends kind of a lot on what stage of life you're in, what your time horizon is, because obviously when people are younger, they're a little bit more prone to take risks and be aggressive with their investing, understanding that they have many years to ride the highs and lows. As you get a little bit closer to retirement, a lot of times people will take a more conservative approach and be more invested in things like bonds that have guaranteed returns, but maybe don't have the upside of being, in the stock market.
What do you think about that, Jason? You're a young man and you've got a big future ahead of you. But what should people look at in terms of when they should make those decisions to be a conservative investor or high risk?
Good question. I think there's a lot of things that really come into play when it comes to risk tolerance. It is time horizon. It is that comfort level, how long you have until retirement. But it also has to do with your experiences. Some folks have had some really poor experiences with investing in the past, and their risk tolerance can change from one year to the next. And so you really want to be cognizant of each of those pieces. Again, your time horizon, your goals and aspirations, and then again your experiences based on past performances that you've been through.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned if you've got a long time to do investing, that you might be more able to emotionally take the highs and lows. Are people, or do people expect that once they, give you X amount of dollars and say, invest that for me, that it's going to continue to climb, that they'll always get a good return?
I think the general understanding is that over long enough time spans, the market always goes up. Over the last 100 years or so, you could count on, somewhere between 5 and 10% on average over decades. Obviously, it seems these days to just swing election cycle to election cycle. You'll have, a boom economy and then, right back in the tank. COVID obviously is a huge, impact. These kind of global pandemics, swine flu, H1N1, all these things. So a lot of times, it's speculation more than it is anything else. And, if people are comfortable and think things are going well, then the economy or the stock market can rise.
But they also have to be aware that maybe even an international crisis on the other side of the world could affect the stock market here in the United States.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it will, absolutely, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that come into play with the United States stock market in this day and age. I mean, 50, 70 years ago, we were more a domestic economy. And as we become more of a global economy, international geopolitical issues, trade tariffs, and different leadership, different laws across the ponds, that it really can have a large impact on what happens here in the United States, for sure.
All right. What's the goal then, would you say, of financial planning? I'll let both of you answer this. You start, Jason.
Yeah, I think the biggest goal into financial planning is just coming up with a strategy.
Strategy.
Yeah, a strategy between, it doesn't matter if you're 20, 22 years old, just starting out with not a lot of money, like I did, graduating college being, broke and negative net worth, or if you're getting closer to the retirement age and you want to come up with an idea of when you can exit, when all the stars will align, so to speak, with your previous savings, your current savings, your goals, and those aspirations that we were talking about, along with risk tolerances that we discussed earlier. How all those pieces come together in a strategy to make sure that you can live a fulfilling retirement for the future.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that's what we're talking about, is planning for the future. Well, can you add to that, and maybe even what you should know legally as you begin to invest for the future?
Yeah, so what I would say is obviously the earlier the better that you get hooked up with a financial advisor. whether that's something employer sponsored, or whether that's you out on your own or with a certified financial planner. You want to start early, because the earlier you get started, the more you can save for retirement, and you can have a sort of lifestyle that you want to live in retirement. That being said, if you haven't started until 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, there's still always something that can be done. And it's very important to get some qualified assistance and knowing what sort of things based on my lifestyle that I have now.
Yeah.
What am I comfortable investing? Are there things that I could I invest more? Should I invest less? Do I have other expenses that take priority? But ultimately, when I retire at some point, if I'm fortunate enough to retire, what does that look like? What is the number I need to reach to get there?
That's a tough question. And I'm sure that you get that as a financial planner or wealth advisor, Jason. How do you know how much you need to retire?
That is the without sounding too silly, the $1 million question, right? So it really depends on your goals. There's really 3 different elements when it comes into play with your retirement. How much are you willing to save while you're working? How much are you wanting to spend in retirement, and how long are you willing to work? There's only 3 of those elements that come into play. So if you're not willing to save enough while you're working, then you may have to work longer, or you may have to spend less in retirement.
Yeah.
Or if you did a fantastic job the first 10, 15 years of working, then the opportunities of retiring earlier or spending a little bit more in retirement are really more clear in that picture. Absolutely.
And it's hard, and Will, as you do a lot of wills, so we're thinking long term also. But aren't there scales or graphs or something that give you an idea of how long you might live?
Certainly, the IRS has tables that show based on a person's life expectancy. So what your age is now, what your gender is, and they'll say, how long you're expected to live. A lot of insurance companies and investment companies will use these tables to kind of set the foundation of how they decide to assess risk and write policies, things like that. So that's certainly something that exists.
Because that's something that people just don't know. I mean, you've talked, Jason, about when and where you're going to spend your money at what stage of life, but the question is, like, if I need to save something for retirement, from retirement until I pass away, how many years is that? So how much money will I need?
The big question there is, what are you wanting to spend, and how long can you afford to spend at those levels? So once you retire, maybe you have a pension, maybe you've got Social Security. I have clients who have more income than they know what to do with, because they've got a pension, they've got their Social Security, their mortgage is paid, and they don't have anything to worry about.
So they keep saving money.
I've got clients who are retired and saving money. I've also got clients who are eating into that savings, particularly when we talk about in the context of long-term care or assisted living. You start getting those nursing home bills for $4,000, $5,000 a month for assisted living. Somewhere north of $10,000 a month, a lot of cases in skilled nursing care, that can eat through, decades and decades of saving incredibly quickly.
And the thing is, because as we've experienced a lot, I think, especially in the last couple of years, that prices have gone up, whether it's the grocery store or your dry cleaning bill, whatever, but prices have gone up. So then we think, okay, based on today's market, I would need this much money, but then what if prices keep going up? Will I have enough? That's a hard question.
Yep, certainly if inflation is 8%, I mean, I don't know that anybody counted on that, and hopefully, that number comes down and is a little bit more consistent. Obviously, the government tells us, oh yeah, we're just shooting for 2% inflation every year, and it seems like in the last couple of years we haven't really stuck to that goal all that well, but hopefully better times are coming.
I hope so. We'll count on that. In the meanwhile, let's talk about long-term care insurance. Is that a good idea or not? Jason, you start.
I think it's in some cases very applicable. I think And I think Will probably he's dealt with more clients than I have about that work through long-term care and that planning. But yeah, I think it all depends on your likelihood of ending up in a nursing home. If you have family history of dementia or being in a diminished capacity, there's a lot to it. But I mean, I think, Will, what are your thoughts?
What do you think?
So there are some great products out there nowadays, particularly anything that bundles long-term care insurance with life insurance, I think is a good thing, typically.
With life insurance.
Because you don't want to pay for long-term care insurance for 30 years, 40 years, and then not end up using it, and you just threw all that money away, like you just burning it in the garbage can, right? But if you could couple, and there are programs out there that will couple your long-term care insurance, where if you need it during your life for long-term care, you can take that benefit for the long-term care insurance, and if you don't use it, you can get a death benefit on that policy when you pass away.
Okay. At what age then should people start or consider purchasing long-term care insurance if they think that's going to be best for them?
Yeah, so unfortunately, purchasing long-term care insurance is definitely a young man's game. A lot of times, by the time people start having symptoms and think that, maybe long-term care insurance is something I could consider, if you're in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, a lot of people are going to find that those premiums on long-term care policies are exorbitantly expensive. If you get it when you're young, a lot of times, you lock in a low premium and you can ride that out for 40 years. But when you're 65 years old, if you're not, disabled or disqualified automatically from long-term care consideration, those premiums are still going to be incredibly expensive.
Yeah, the older you are, the more expensive it is
Everything
to
is.
purchase.
Life insurance is the same way, yep.
Everything is. Okay, we're getting a phone call right now here, and this is from Arnold. Is that right? Okay, yes, Arnold. Okay. Arnold asks this. He says, what advice would you give to someone new to the workforce? Oh, good
Great
questions.
question.
Okay,
Yeah,
what do you
I'd
think,
like to take
Jason?
that one. Absolutely. I think the biggest advice that I would give would be to try to spend far less than you make. If you're able to start saving 5-10% of your pay from the very get-go and live off below what your take-home pay is. Essentially pay yourself first. If you're just entering the workforce, you can have that time horizon that we discussed. And so, if you can save just a little bit every paycheck through a workplace plan, or even on your own if your employer doesn't offer it, then that would be a fantastic start. And then the next step would be to try to save a little bit more with every time you get a pay raise or a promotion.
Save a little bit more percentage-wise?
A higher percentage,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
Yes.
And Arnold, if you can do that, good for you. You're the one that's going to win in the end, for sure.
Absolutely.
I think do you find that so many people don't even start saving until they're 40 or 50 years old? It's like, what are you going to do now?
Yeah, so I would definitely echo Jason's comments that if you can, every time you get a raise, every time you get a promotion, that's not more cost of living. That's, try to keep your living expenses relatively stable, and that's more money that you can invest in your future. And then a second piece is make sure you take advantage of the employer match on a 401k.
Oh, right.
If you have to put in a certain amount of money for your employer to put contributions in that's 100% return on investment in year one. If you put in $200, your employer puts in $200, you're making more money on that than you would ever make in the market probably in 10 years. So definitely maximize that.
Okay, good good idea. And that's something a lot of people don't know about. I mean, they maybe the employer will call an all-staff meeting and say, okay, we've got some things you can invest in, whatever, a 401k or I don't know, what are some other options?
A simple IRA, 457.
A simple IRA, right.
Yes.
And a lot of the young people don't even know what those things are, so they don't say, okay, they don't have that taken out of their check. If you have it taken out of your check, you just don't see it, so you don't expect it, and that's kind of a good thing.
Yep.
And yet you're saving in the meanwhile. Okay, good question, Arnold. Thank you for that, and thank you for watching. Jason, talk to me about annuities. Good idea? Not a good idea?
In some cases, they are. Basically, let's kind of take a step back of what an annuity is.
Yeah.
Is an annuity is essentially a contract with an insurance company that really just promises certain guarantees or products. It could be a death benefit at the back end. It could be a payment for life for the future. It could be, a protection against some or all downside exposures. But you're also going to be giving up certain things as far as the fees may be a little bit higher on those annuities, so you have to be cognizant of those. And then you may also be limited on your upside potential if you have that kind of contract. So you want to look at both sides, because some of them are very good, some of them are not so good.
How am I going to know?
I would recommend talking to a certified financial planner.
Get a
Absolutely,
financial planner.
Yeah.
Get somebody that knows about it to help you. Sarah's been watching tonight, and Sarah, we appreciate you watching Life Ahead here on PBS Fort Wayne. Sarah says this: she's on a fixed income. At what point do I walk away from rising nursing home care insurance? If I cancel, what do I do about my care if I need to enter a home and spend down my money? Talk about this a little bit, if you will. You mentioned long-term care and how expensive that can be. Maybe Sarah's got needs some advice here, and you can help her.
Right. So certainly can't speak to all the details of your situation without having sat down with you, reviewed the finances, looked at the long-term care insurance, that kind of stuff. But what I can tell you is that there are a lot of clients out there at my firm and probably everywhere else in the state of Indiana who are coming in and saying, listen, I have this long-term care insurance. We got a premium renewal notice and the premiums are going up astronomically. It's no longer affordable. Should I keep this and should I, pinch pennies elsewhere, or do I, continue to pay? And what I'll tell you is that a lot of times, if you don't have long-term care insurance, what we try to do is leverage Medicaid to assist to the greatest extent possible with paying for your long-term care costs. So Medicaid is a needs-based program. If you're a single individual, you've got to be under $2,000 worth of assets to be qualified for Medicaid. The rules are a little bit more generous for married couples. When you have a community spouse, they get an allowance to live on so that they're not impoverished by the cost of the ill spouse's care. But that's something that you should definitely sit down with an attorney who does elder law work, work through kind of what the budget looks like. Does it make sense for you? Are there other avenues other than long-term care insurance that may be a better fit for your situation?
It can get very complicated, and again, everybody's situation is going to be different, and there are different options for different situations. All right, let's talk about taxes. Are there tax implications, gentlemen, for investments and for retirement accounts? And that's what we're talking about, are investments for long-term care and for your retirement. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, there's the taxes are different on each one. I mean, retirement plans, whether it's a pre-tax 401k, 403b, you're going to pay taxes on all the dollars. The way normally the pre-tax 401k works is you put money in, you avoid paying federal and state taxes, you let it go tax deferred, and then when you go to retirement, every dollar is taxable. The theory is you're in this tax bracket while you're working, and you may be in this tax bracket while you're retired. And then there's Roth IRAs, which money goes in there after tax, and then it grows tax-free. Annuities in some cases, depending on what kind of product that it's in, it could be every dollar for the first, all the growth could be taxable up front, and then the remaining amount may be just return of premium. So yeah, you have to be cognizant of tax ramifications upon withdrawals in all those retirement assets.
Always taxes to think about.
Yeah, so particularly with 401ks and IRAs, traditional pre-tax money, everything you pull out, that's going to be subject to federal income tax. You've also got on other investment accounts, if you own stocks, you have what's called a tax basis. So if you bought a stock for $100 and you held it for 30 years and it's now worth $200 a share, when you sell that share of stock, you will have a capital gain on the difference between what you purchased it for and what you sold it for. So the difference in those two numbers, or that $100, would be taxed typically at a rate between 15 and 20%. So that's another tax to be cognizant
15
of.
and 20%.
Yeah.
On capital gains,
Yeah.
yes. That's after you've already paid income tax on that money, right?
Wow.
I
So
would certainly want to recommend that you talk to a tax preparer for really specific questions when it
Because
comes
all of
to
a
taxes.
sudden, your money's not your money anymore.
Yeah. I think I definitely would recommend talking to a CPA or a tax attorney about
Sure.
specific tax questions.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah, and I mean,
makes
I
sense.
think it's kind of a shame that everybody comes in and they look at, okay, well, I've got this big number in my 401k, my IRA, maybe not considering that, 20, 30% of that is actually going to be taxed. So you don't really have as much money in your retirement
As
account
you
as you
think
think
you
you
do.
do, right?
Well, if you listen to experts like this, you'll have some money then for those times in your life as you get older and have to think about your financial planning. I appreciate you both being here.
Thank
Such
you.
good wisdom that you've shared with our audience tonight. Again, we will see you next Wednesday night right here. New topic, new guest. But meanwhile, have a great night. Stay healthy and stay safe.
The preceding program on PBS Fort Wayne was made possible in part by
Beers Mallers, elder law attorneys providing information on legal matters of guardianship and financial issues relating to nursing home care. Beers Mallers attorneys can also assist with Medicaid requirements and help navigate difficult family situations. Offices in Fort Wayne, LaGrange, Warsaw, and online at beersmallers.com.